Imagine you finally have $10,000 sitting in your investment account. It feels huge. You look at that number and think, I'm actually getting somewhere. Then you check what happens next. $10,000 becomes $10,700. A $700 increase. Nice. But not life-changing. And suddenly, you realize something frustrating. Getting from $10,000 to $20,000 can feel like climbing a mountain. Getting from $100,000 to $110,000 can feel almost automatic. So why? Why does the first $100,000 feel painfully slow, while the next $100,000 can arrive much faster? The answer isn't simply that rich people make more money. It's something much more interesting. Your first $100,000 has to be built mostly by you. After that, your money starts helping you build the next $100,000. And once you understand that difference, wealth starts looking very different. Let's imagine two people. We'll call them Alex and Jordan. They both earn decent incomes. They both want financial freedom. They both understand that investing matters. But they make one common mistake. They expect investing to make them rich quickly. Alex invests $500 every month. Jordan does the same. At the beginning, something strange happens. Almost all of their progress comes from their own contributions. After 1 year, they've contributed $6,000. If their investments also grow, maybe the account is somewhat higher. But the important point is this. Their money isn't doing much of the heavy lifting yet. The account is simply too small. If you have $1,000 invested and it grows by 10%, you've made $100. If you have $100,000 invested and it grows by 10%, you've made $10,000. Same percentage. Completely different result. And that's the secret hiding inside the first $100,000. The percentage doesn't change. The base changes. Think of your investments like a small snowball rolling downhill. At the beginning, the snowball is tiny. You push it. It moves a little. You push again. It moves a little more. For a while, it feels like you're doing all the work. But as the snowball gets bigger, something changes. Now the snowball itself starts collecting more snow. And eventually, the amount of snow it picks up can become larger than what you're adding manually. That's what compounding can do over long periods. Now imagine Alex gets a raise. Her income increases by $500 a month. What happens? She could invest the extra $500. But instead, maybe the apartment gets upgraded. Then the phone gets upgraded. Then eating out becomes more frequent. Then subscriptions pile up. Nothing feels crazy individually. That's the trap. Lifestyle inflation rarely announces itself. It arrives disguised as, I can afford it now. And technically, maybe you can. But there's a difference between being able to afford something and being able to afford something without slowing down your future. Every permanent increase in your monthly expenses creates a permanent requirement for future income. That's why your first $100,000 isn't only about making more money. It's about creating a gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is the engine. Your income provides the fuel. Your savings provide the starting capital. And investing gives that capital an opportunity to grow. Then something changes. Now let's say you finally reached $100,000. Nothing magical happens. There isn't a notification from the universe. No billionaire appears at your door. You wake up the next morning. And you still have the same job. But mathematically, something important has changed. Your money has become large enough that normal market growth can produce noticeable dollar amounts. Again, suppose an investment portfolio averages 7% over a long period. A $100,000 portfolio would represent $7,000 of growth in a hypothetical 7% year. That's more than a year's worth of $500 monthly contributions. Suddenly, the money you've already accumulated can contribute a meaningful amount toward the next milestone. And this is where people often misunderstand compounding. They think compounding means, my money earns money, and then that money earns money. That's true. But the deeper idea is this. Your returns become part of the base that can generate future returns. It's like a machine that gets bigger every time it produces something. At first, the machine produces almost nothing. But as the machine grows, its output grows too. Eventually, the machine becomes the main worker. Let's imagine two people again. Person A has $10,000 invested. Person B has $100,000. Both invest another $500 every month. Person A is adding $6,000 a year to a $10,000 starting base. That's enormous relative to the account. Person B is adding the same $6,000. But already has $100,000 working in the background. That means Person B has something Person A doesn't have yet. Scale. And scale is incredibly powerful in finance. A 5% gain on $1,000 is $50. A 5% gain on $100,000 is $5,000. A 5% gain on $1 million is $50,000. The percentage is boring. The base is what makes the number exciting. That's why wealthy people can sometimes appear to make money effortlessly. It's not necessarily because they found a magical investment. It's because they have a large amount of capital participating in the process. But there's a catch. And this is important. Compounding isn't a straight line. Investments can go up. They can go down. Some years can be excellent. Others can be terrible. A hypothetical 7% average return doesn't mean you get exactly 7% every year. Real markets don't move like a savings calculator. And that's exactly why chasing quick returns can be dangerous. When someone is desperate to reach $100,000 quickly, they may start looking for shortcuts. The next hot stock. The next cryptocurrency. The next guaranteed opportunity. The next person promising to turn $1,000 into $100,000. But the irony is that trying to speed up the process can create the biggest obstacle of all. You can lose years of progress by taking risks you don't understand. The boring approach often wins because it is repeatable. Earn. Save. Invest appropriately for your situation. Keep going. Let time participate. There's another reason the first $100,000 matters. It changes how you think. When you have no savings, an unexpected $1,000 expense can feel like a disaster. When you have a financial cushion, the same expense is annoying, but manageable. When your investments reach meaningful size, you start noticing something else. Your money has options. You don't necessarily need to spend every extra dollar. A bonus can become an investment. A raise can become an investment. A side income stream can become an investment. A tax refund can become an investment. You're no longer thinking only, what can this money buy me? You're beginning to think, what can this money become? That question is incredibly powerful. Because money can be consumed once. Or it can become an asset that potentially helps produce more money over time. A $1,000 purchase gives you something. A $1,000 investment gives you ownership of something that may grow. Neither choice is automatically right or wrong. But they create very different futures. So what should you actually do? The lesson isn't that everyone needs exactly $100,000. For some people, the right financial milestone will be different. The important idea is understanding the phases. Phase 1 is accumulation. You're building the base. Your income, savings rate, and habits matter enormously. This is where increasing your income can be especially powerful. Learning valuable skills. Negotiating better pay. Finding better opportunities. Building a side income if it makes sense. And controlling unnecessary spending. Because when your portfolio is small, adding another $1,000 yourself can make a huge difference. Phase 2 is acceleration. Once your invested assets become substantial, investment growth can represent a larger part of your progress. Your contributions still matter. But now your existing capital is participating too. Phase 3 is compounding. This is where time becomes incredibly valuable. Instead of constantly asking, how can I make money faster? You begin asking, how can I keep my money invested and give it enough time to grow? That is a completely different mindset. The first $100,000 is difficult because you're building something from almost nothing. You're not just building a portfolio. You're building habits. You're building discipline. You're building financial breathing room. You're building the ability to delay gratification. And most importantly, you're building the base that future growth can work on. That's why the first $100,000 can feel painfully slow. But once you have meaningful capital, the mathematics start becoming more favorable. Not guaranteed. Not effortless. Not overnight. Just more powerful. Because now you're no longer pushing the entire snowball yourself. The snowball is finally big enough to help. And perhaps that's the most important thing to understand about wealth. Getting rich isn't always about finding something that grows incredibly fast. Sometimes it's about building something small, protecting it, adding to it, and refusing to interrupt the process. Your first $100,000 may test your patience more than your intelligence. But if you can build that foundation, you reach a point where your money finally gets a seat at the table. And from there, every dollar you add isn't working alone. It joins all the dollars that came before it. That's when wealth starts becoming less about how hard you push, and more about how long you can keep the machine running. The first $100,000 isn't the finish line. It's the point where the game starts changing. But there's a psychological problem. Humans are terrible at appreciating slow growth. We love dramatic progress. We want to invest $500 and somehow wake up with $5,000. We want passive income without first having an asset that produces meaningful income. We want the tree before planting the seed. And that's why the first stage of wealth building can feel so boring. Let's make this painfully simple. Suppose you have $10,000 invested. Imagine, purely as an example, that your investment earns an average 7% in a year. 7% of $10,000 is $700. Now imagine you've built the account to $50,000. 7% is $3,500. At $100,000, 7% is $7,000. At $200,000, 7% is $14,000. Notice what's happening. The investment didn't suddenly become smarter. You didn't discover some secret stock. The percentage stayed exactly the same. But the dollars generated by that percentage became dramatically larger. This is why the first $100,000 is such an important psychological milestone. Before that point, your income and savings rate are doing most of the work. After that point, your accumulated capital begins to matter much more. And that changes the game. Your first $100,000 isn't just a math problem. It's a behavior problem. Because you have to repeatedly do things that aren't very exciting. You have to spend less than you earn. You have to avoid turning every raise into a bigger lifestyle. You have to keep investing when the market is boring. You have to keep investing when the market is scary. You have to resist buying things simply because everyone around you is buying them. And perhaps hardest of all, you have to be patient when nothing appears to be happening. Imagine saving $500 a month. After 1 month, you have $500. After 2 months, $1,000. After 10 months, $5,000. That feels slow. Then you reach $10,000. Still slow. Then $20,000. Still slow. And this is where many people quit. Not because the strategy doesn't work, but because the emotional reward arrives much later than the effort. Your brain wants immediate feedback. You work today. You want results today. But wealth often works differently. You plant today. The meaningful result may show up years later. That's why consistency is so powerful. You're essentially training yourself to value a future reward more than an immediate one.